I've been staying busy like, kingdom got me dizzy like, yeah. Notice something isn't right. That's why we go 24, 365.
Hello, everybody. You are listening to WIDR Kalamazoo, and this is The Bottom Line, where we meet life's inconsistencies with foundational truth. I am Harrison Kramer.
I am Jake Chandler.
And today we are going to be discussing thankfulness, seeing how Thanksgiving is 2 days away. I'm excited to go on break. I'm excited to see my family.
Me too.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. But thankfulness, it kind of goes without saying, is not something that should happen one time a year. You shouldn't be mindful of thankfulness one time a year. And we're not gonna sit here and preach about that concept specifically, but instead we're kind of gonna break down thankfulness in general. We're gonna talk about what it is, why it's important, and then we're going to talk about the dangers of envy and discontentment, which are the opposite of thankfulness. And we're also going to discuss how it impacts our relationship with God and essentially how serious the concept of thankfulness is, and how it's meant to position our hearts in such a way that makes life better. And then towards the end of the show, in the second half, we're going to do our thing where we break down a song, and this song is going to be 4 a.m. It's called 4 a.m., and it's by WHATUPRG, and so later in the show, we're going to break that down. But for now, we're going to get into our topic of thankfulness. Jake, you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay, good. So thankfulness is defined as feeling or expressing gratitude, appreciative. That is what showed up when I Googled it. Yeah. And so feeling or expressing gratitude, appreciative. And thankfulness is also a foundational biblical principle. The Bible talks about thankfulness over 100 different times in many different kinds of ways. And with that said, I do want to remind you guys as listeners that the things that Jake and I are going to say on this show, the views and values that we hold ourselves to are personal to us, and they do not reflect that of WIDR as a whole, and they also do not reflect that of Western Michigan University as a whole. These beliefs and opinions are our own. We're going to share them and talk about them, but you can do with them what you wish. And so thankfulness is feeling or expressing gratitude. It's appreciative, and it's one of the most basic concepts in Scripture, in the Bible. And in general, I just want to talk about how thankfulness is displayed and executed within our culture. And if you think it's executed properly, and why, or why not.
I mean, I don't think it's executed enough, but I don't know if it's really executed improperly. In most cases, I think it's a pretty proper form of Thanksgiving, but I do think it should be much more prevalent.
Okay, so not that there's a way of improperly executing thanks, but that it's not.
I imagine there
frequent.
is. I imagine there is an improper way of expressing thanks, like if there's self-interest involved, but I don't think that would be the trend, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
But I do think it's not as common as it should be.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. I like that insight. When I think of the concept of thankfulness within our culture, it's something I have to think about for a second. And I think for me, that kind of shows that, in my opinion, it's not as prevalent as it should be. And, but when I think about the opposite and I think about things like complaining, that seems to show up a lot more frequently and seems to be much more popular than something like thankfulness is.
The more I think about it, it might be a little improper in the terms of not necessarily self-interest, but the more I think about it, the more I think maybe we as a culture, or just me personally, have sort of taken the meaning away from it. Like, I just specifically was thinking of the example of, like, when someone holds a door open for you, like, oh, thanks. That means nothing to me. Like, I'm glad you did it, but, like, when I say thanks, I'm not, like, internally thinking, man, that was so nice.
Oh, okay.
So, I don't know. I think there's both.
Interesting. Like saying thanks as just something that's expected.
Yeah.
You're expected to say thanks for someone that opens the door, or even don't say thanks. You give them a head nod, and it's expected that that's like the same thing.
Right.
But that's not something you're going home thinking like, man, when they said thank you, when I held the door open for them, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So there is, and that's like usually people do say thank you, and that's amazing.
Yeah. It's nice.
And so thankfulness is present, but I don't think it's as deep as it's meant to be.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think of most of the time when I ask people how their day was, and I'm guilty of it. If someone asks me how my day is, what is probably going to happen, not every time, but a lot of the time, if you ask someone how their day was, the next 5 minutes are probably going to consist of them complaining to you in one way or another. And for some reason, it seems to be much easier to complain than to be thankful.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I think I'm guilty of that. And so the stuff we're going to dive into this episode also applies to me.
Mm-hmm.
And but at the same time, later on, I plan on sharing a couple of stories about what a thankful mindset has done for me and how it's advanced me within hard situations that people probably wouldn't expect thankfulness to be the proper response.
Mm-hmm.
And back to complaining a little bit. I think it's interesting how easy it is to complain, how popular it is to complain, and how much you can relate to another person through complaining.
Yeah.
And like nobody says what they're thankful for unless you ask them.
Mm-hmm.
But they will complain to you without you even asking them to.
Yeah.
And I want to know why is complaining easier than being thankful, or at least verbalizing it.
That's a good question. Maybe because it's a bigger deal to us. Like the negative sides of our day are more important to us than the positives sometimes. Maybe. I don't know.
Gotcha.
That might make a bigger impression on our, immediate thoughts.
Yeah.
Like if I were to ask you how your day went, I don't know, I imagine your mind starts to scroll back through your day thinking about what happened.
Uh-huh.
And the things that stick out are the negatives.
Right.
Not so much the positives, and that might make it easier because we think about them more.
Yeah. I think you're probably spot on. Just the fact that we tend to lean towards and think about negative things more than the good things.
Mm-hmm.
And the good things, it's easy to forget them.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of good things every day. And then maybe you don't have bad things every day. So when the bad things happen, it's easier to remember and talk about those than it is to mention the good things that have been happening for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, if someone were to complain about their classes, which seems to be pretty frequent, you should be thankful that you're in a university, you're in a college, but that has become, like, it's almost like that goes without saying.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I don't think we express proper thanks. We don't do it enough. And I think we're really missing out because of that.
Right.
And another thing that I think threatens thankfulness, aside from complaining, but this also kind of goes hand in hand with it, is envy.
Mm.
And so we tend to focus on what we don't have more than what we have. We tend to dwell on that. And because our minds, we set our minds to what we don't have, we're more prone to complaining.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were to set our minds to what we do have, we'd be more prone to thankfulness.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Good. I didn't know for sure if it would.
No, I think it did.
And so I think what I'm trying to get at is discontentment and envy are not good.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we all engage in them every day regularly.
Yeah.
And it's expected to engage in them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think discontent and envy don't set our souls at rest and don't give us peace.
Right.
Because I think our souls are meant to be at rest.
Yeah.
Like our souls were designed for that. Our bodies were designed to be at internal peace.
Mm-hmm.
And discontent, envy literally does not allow for that.
Yeah.
So if that is harbored within our minds and within our hearts, there's like thankfulness isn't allowed.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And that makes it kind of impossible to enjoy what you have.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone is constantly discontent and constantly envious, it's hard for you to enjoy certain like achievements
Mm-hmm.
that you've made in your life. It's hard for you to enjoy certain relationships that you have in your life.
Yeah.
Like I think of J. Cole. He had this line on an album a couple years ago, Forest Hills Drive. Well, he says, always gonna be a girl that's better out there on them tours, but you ain't never gonna be happy till you love yours. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm paraphrasing, of course. But that line just reigns so true, that until we learn to be happy with what we have immediately in front of us, then we're not going to experience joy.
Yeah.
And it's so dangerous because discontentment and envy lead into a vicious cycle where even if you were to get what you wanted, you wouldn't be happy with that either.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like if you aren't happy with what you have now, then you're not going to be happy with what you have later.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a deep-rooted and serious issue that I think goes back to the beginning of time. It is essentially, we'll dive into this after a quick break, but is essentially what brought sin into the world.
Yeah.
The church pews.
I know you need something else. Do you want it?
Said the one that I worked through is far from the church pews. Hey.
So back to our conversation about thankfulness. We have discussed what thankfulness is. We've discussed whether or not it's something that is present within our culture, present within our society in its proper form. And we've discussed envy and discontentment, which seem to be the enemies of thankfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And the two of them can't reside in the same place. They don't belong together.
So when you talk about discontentment, are you just talking specifically about with things you don't have?
Good question. I think discontentment takes many, many forms.
Because I would go to say that we're going to feel discontent about things. Like it's almost nearly impossible to be content with everything we have, everything in our life. Like there's going to be things that come up that trouble us. So I don't know if we're just talking about like discontentment linked to envy and not having what we wish we did on thankfulness sort of style.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we're talking about?
Can you repeat that last part again?
About like being linked to envy? Like
Yeah.
Like we're talking about thankfulness and envy and discontentment. I'm just thinking there are going to be, events in our life or things that happen that will cause discontentment.
Right.
For a time at least.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of unavoidable just because we're human.
Right.
But if we're talking about discontentment with, what we have, and discontentment being linked to envy in the sense that we don't have what other people have, we don't have what we wish we had, that might be a different story.
Gotcha. So, yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. There are going to be things that happen to us in our life that are inevitable and out of our control, and it's going to lead to us wishing things were different.
Yeah, I'm thinking about 4 a.m., the song.
The song we're going to talk about later, which will bring another side of this discussion out, and I'm glad for that. That's going to be fun. But we're getting into the part of the discussion that's going to sound kind of radical and countercultural, but I think it is possible to remain content no matter what happens to you.
Okay.
And that contentment is something with enough practice and discipline is something you can choose to have always.
Okay.
And as well as thankfulness. And so I think just like envy and discontentment go hand in hand, I think thankfulness and contentment go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
But that does not mean that you always take things in stride. Like if a family member dies or something like that, that it doesn't mean that's not hard.
Right.
It doesn't mean you should think that's not hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, it doesn't take away the effects of, or it doesn't take away the reality and severity of loss and of pain. But we're actually about to dive into some scripture which is going to talk about that. So I'm glad you brought that up. But before we get into that scripture, we're going to talk about Adam and Eve.
All right.
You know Adam and Eve?
Yeah.
First two humans to walk the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And the beginning of the Bible, the first book is called Genesis. God made the world in 6 days, and on the sixth day he made man, and then he made woman.
Mm-hmm.
And they lived in the Garden of Eden, which was perfect.
Yeah.
Because everything had just been created, so everything was perfect. They had everything that they needed.
Mm-hmm.
They walked closely to God. They communicated with God constantly, and they had nothing was wrong.
Yeah.
But something came into the picture. The serpent came into the picture and tempted Eve into eating a fruit that God told them not to.
Yeah.
There was literally one thing that Adam and Eve could not do, and it was eat the fruit from the tree of knowledge and good and evil. And then this serpent comes along and tempts Eve into eating it because she could be like God if she did.
Mm-hmm.
And she did. She
Yeah.
ate it. She became envious of God, right? Her and Adam did.
Yeah.
They became prideful because they wanted to be like him. And they became discontent with what they had. And so they ate this fruit hoping that it would bring something more to their life.
Mm-hmm.
It brought more things, but the other things it brought were an introduction to death,
Yeah.
an introduction to darkness. And so I don't think it's a coincidence that envy and discontentment doesn't lead to anything good,
Right.
because those are two things that brought evil into the world in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are they what, in a sense, condemned mankind, but they are constantly threatening to keep us trapped.
Mm-hmm.
Discontentment and envy are constantly threatening to keep us in darkness and keep us from what God has. And so I think this is something that people need to fight against.
Mm-hmm.
We need to fight against the things that are threatening to keep us away from light. And our secret weapon in an imperfect, broken, fallen world truly is thankfulness.
Mm-hmm.
That's our secret weapon. That's what we got to fight with. And I want to get into another Bible verse from the book of Philippians, which is a letter written by Paul to a church. Philippians 4:12-13 says, "I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in every and any situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me.
There you have it.
Right, but this is not easy.
No.
He's saying he knows both sides of the story. He knows what it's like to be in need. He knows what it's like to have plenty, to have more than enough. And yet he's saying the secret to both sides of that is contentment.
Yeah. It's interesting that he says he's found contentment even in want. Like, even when there's things he wants, he's still content.
Yeah, definitely. Whether living in plenty or in want.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like there are things that he wants, things that he desires, but he remains content somehow.
Yeah, because when I think discontentment, I think like you don't have what you want.
Right.
But Paul's saying you might not have what you want, but you can still be content about it.
Yeah. I think that's a really good observation. There's always going to be things that my heart desires that I'm never going to have. And then if I get my hands on those things, there's going to be other things, because it's an endless, your heart like just endlessly wants things.
Like grass is greener sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like a never-ending cycle. And so the secret to combat that is contentment.
How did Paul find it?
Well, he found it in Jesus.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, which is an interesting conversation in and of itself. How do you find contentment in Jesus?
Yeah. It's a good question.
I think I like this verse because Philippians 4:13 is a very popular verse. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
But it is not usually used paired with contentment, I don't think.
No, like almost.
It's usually the opposite.
It's usually
Kinda.
used. It's usually used. I see a lot of athletes use it. I think it's cool because I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Like basically, they're using it in the sense of you can beat the odds.
Yeah.
You can overcome certain things. You can overcome the haters. You can, you can defy the odds.
Yeah.
But it's actually referring to contentment. And it's saying even when it seems impossible to be at peace, impossible to be content, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you.
Yeah. Because when I think of that verse, I almost think about it, this might be a little drastic, but we'll see, in the context of, if you think about an athlete saying it, they're saying it because there's something they want to accomplish, and they're using that verse as like motivation to accomplish it. But in Paul's context, it might be more along the lines of, I want to accomplish this, or I want this to happen, but it's not.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that.
Right. So as opposed to using that verse to get to where you want to be, the verse is kind of like,
be okay with where you're at.
Be okay with where you're at.
Dang.
Although I don't think it's bad to use it in the way that like
no, it's not bad
Steph
to have
Curry
aspirations.
Use it and whatnot, but yeah, that it's just funny how popular certain verses can get without people knowing where it's actually from and what it's actually referring to. So that was that. Another one I want to talk about really quick is 1 Thessalonians, which is another letter to a different church. It says, rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's intense.
Yeah.
That requires a lot of faith and trust in God.
Mm-hmm. And it's super straightforward.
It is, yeah.
Be thankful in all circumstances.
Yeah, because God's in control and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
You should be thankful for his plan.
Exactly. And not only be thankful in all circumstances, but it's actually God's will for us to be thankful.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfulness is not, it's not God's way of, well, first of all, when it's talking about being thankful in all circumstances, it's as radical as it sounds. It means every single circumstance, be thankful.
Yeah.
And it does not mean be thankful because you better be thankful. I mean, look at everything that God has done for you. You better be thankful. You could go that route if you want, but what it's communicating is the best way to get out of a difficult situation is with thankfulness.
Yeah.
The best way to escape darkness is with thankfulness and contentment. And so when it says give thanks in all circumstances, it's saying keep this weapon of thankfulness at the forefront of your mind constantly so that you can navigate through life and bounce back from things quicker. You can enjoy things more. And it's God's will for us to be able to do that.
Yeah. So is that saying for every, aspect of your day, if you're driving down the road and you get into a fender bender, should you thank the Lord?
Yes.
Dang. I feel like if we put that into practice, that would be crazy.
Yeah, and that's not, I if someone were to hear that and be like, that is just not true, I would be like, I totally hear you.
Yeah.
Like, they'd be like, you should not be thankful in a situation like that. I'd be like, I hear you, but you should.
Yeah.
Because it is the quickest way to recovery. A couple I talked about earlier, I was going to share a couple stories, and I'll do that really fast. Remember working at Cedar Point?
Yeah.
Jake and I both worked at Cedar Point this past summer, which is an amusement park with roller coasters. We should have a whole episode about that one time because it was amazing, and we learned a lot. But it was hard work. It's really hard work. I worked in the games department where you're outside all day, and it's very hot, and the sun is beating down on you. And I was on break, about to go into the cafeteria so that I could eat. And it's been a hard day, man. I opened, had to set up the game. Guests are complaining and whatnot. And when I'm about 10 feet away from the entrance, a bird drops a surprise on my shoulder. And I was like, instead of thinking about the what ifs of like, seriously, if I was a minute later or a minute sooner, then this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
I went to the bathroom, went to wash my hands, and they have the automatic sink,
Yep.
which those things can really frustrate me sometimes. Because sometimes they don't work.
Yep.
And you just sit there like doing these magic tricks. And I'm
looking like Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange with bird poop on his shoulder. That was me. And so I go into the bathroom and like the sink isn't starting, so I'm doing all these wavy things. It finally starts. I have to clean it off of my uniform. I have to go to wardrobe, so I don't even eat lunch. I go to wardrobe. I get a change of clothes, and by that time I need to go back to work. And I could feel, this is not by my own strength, I could feel the Spirit of God telling me as I was trying to get water out of the sink in the bathroom, say thank you. And I was sitting there washing my hands, and I said, thank you. And the rest of my day was awesome.
Nice.
Like it wasn't an immediate, in the moment, feel better type thing, but that initial acknowledgement of what is good led to me having a much better day and led to me not dwelling on the things that were either making me angry or the things that weren't fair, the things that were happening to me. Welcome back to WIDR Kalamazoo. This is The Bottom Line, where we meet life's inconsistencies with foundational truth. I'm here with Jake Chandler, and we are discussing thankfulness. We talked about what thankfulness is, how it's involved in our culture, and the opposition that thankfulness faces, which is envy and discontentment. And then we talked about some scriptures from the Bible that challenge us to be thankful and content in all situations. And I was in the middle of sharing a couple experiences where this genuinely helped me get through some things. Having a mindset of thankfulness helped me escape darkness and helped me to recognize the good things that are in my life. And so that Cedar Point story with the bird was one example. But a more emotional example was my freshman year of college just a couple years ago. Things with me and this one girl didn't work out. And as always, this is like heavily emotional. And I remember being on the floor of my dorm room just crying because like this didn't work out. I was lonely in general, didn't really have a lot of people I could call on at the time because I was new to this university. And I remember hitting the floor with tears in my eyes, not knowing what was going to happen next. And again, I could feel the Spirit of God saying to me, say thank you. Mm-hmm. And say thank you for this. And I remember just being so sad and so distraught and saying, thank you, God, for what is happening to me. And I'm not saying this to like flex in a weird way of, I've mastered thankfulness. I've not mastered thankfulness, but it has been so helpful to me. Mm-hmm. And along with that, those experiences have been used in a way to develop my character and further me as a person and further me as a believer. Mm-hmm. Because through thankfulness, those situations were able to be used for hope and used for good. Mm-hmm. If I would have dwelled in the darkness and dwelled in the discontent that should come with those situations, it wouldn't have had as much of an opportunity to advance my character.
Yeah.
And basically what we're getting at is that the goal of if someone is trying to become more thankful, what should they do?
Ask God for help. No.
Well,
yeah. I don't know. It's got to be a conscious choice to be more thankful. Like,
yeah,
you can't wait for things to change in your favor.
Right.
But I think you can definitely take those scriptures into mind or focus more on what you have and be thankful for that instead of what you don't have. And
right.
even in what you don't have, you can recognize what you don't have, but be thankful for what you do have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Thankfulness, like you said, requires effort and conscious decision.
Yeah.
And this, I think, you don't even have to believe in Jesus. Although I believe Jesus, like everyone needs Jesus. Mm-hmm. You don't have to believe in him, I think, for thankfulness to be something that is extremely helpful for you in life.
Yeah.
And to just completely change your mindset. Like, this is... It gets extreme and it gets kind of countercultural, but this is the truth. We do have so much more to be thankful for than we do to complain about.
Yeah.
But complaining seems to be easier. It seems to be what takes over conversations. But it is just not true that we have more to complain about than to be thankful for. Mm-hmm. That's not a fact. And the other part of that is the good things that we do have, we don't deserve them.
Right.
We don't deserve any of the good things that we have. And this that's not meant to be like dark or pessimistic. It's true. The good things that we have were given to us by God. It was given to us by a good God. And what he asks us to do is to accept his son Jesus and remember him, mm-hmm. and be thankful for all the things that he's done for us. Because we we are full of darkness, like just humans in general.
Yeah.
We talked about Adam and Eve earlier, how they introduced sin into the world because of the decision that they made.
Mm-hmm.
Darkness is a part of us, and God is giving us a way out of that. And everything that we experience that is good is because of the mercy of God. Because we don't deserve anything but to die.
Right.
Everything that's good is from God and is a part of his mercy for us. And of course he wants us to be thankful.
Yeah.
Because that aligns us with him.
Yeah.
It aligns us with what he has in mind, our creator.
Yeah. And I think that gives us even more reason to be thankful for the fender bender or for the bird poop, because it points us to him.
Mm-hmm. Could you elaborate on that?
Like,
how does that point us to him?
If we are to say God has given us everything we have, which I believe he has, that means that like you said, we deserve nothing but death, because that's what we have earned.
Mm-hmm.
So to be thankful for the misfortunes in our life is to be thankful for life, like for the fact that we are experiencing them, because
right.
I don't know, I've lost my point, but
bad things can like serve as a reminder.
Yeah, because God has given us everything. God knows everything, that knows and like authoritates our experiences.
Right.
And he's always got a purpose for them. So
yeah,
there's no reason to doubt his plan.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good. That kind of concludes our conversation. I think thankfulness is something that people should become more conscious of. They should make more conscious decisions to recognize thankfulness and express thankfulness verbally through the way you act and how you treat people. And I think thankfulness truly is the key to a healthy soul and is our escape from darkness. And it allows us to maintain our joy and allows us to maintain correct position with God through Jesus, like Paul talked about. I feel like there are certain things that we touched upon within our discussion that could require a little bit more context if any of this is stuff that you're not familiar with. So if anybody has any questions about anything we talked about, feel free to hit me up at Instagram. It's Kramer_H, and Kramer is spelled with a C. You can DM me with any questions that you have about anything we've discussed, or if you have just questions in general, or ideas of what you would like to hear us talk about on this show. Right now we're going to play the song that we talked about earlier. The song is called 4 a.m. It's by an artist named WHATUPRG. And then this is going to be followed by a couple quick messages from the station, and then we're quickly going to break down the song and discuss it. So, this is 4 a.m. by WHATUPRG.
lost and I can't find faith cause it ain't mine. Mama taught me how to pray. Pastor told me that I'm saved. But is that really what it takes? I don't wanna be like everybody that I see up on TV. I wanna love, wanna walk like I seen Christ. But it's hard when I watch what it be like. I don't see Christ, cause half the pastors in America don't want my family in America. And even Jesus was an immigrant, but don't nobody seem to give a Oh, how shook when the cops knock. Oh, how shook when the cops knock. 4 a.m. and they want pops. 4 a.m. and they want pops. Daddy turned around, said farewell. Mama crying on the stairwell. Little brother go, look out the window. Why daddy got handcuffs on him? He ain't did nothing. He ain't never did nothing. All he ever did was work for his children. Pay the rent, little income. Why they gotta take them? Why they gotta break us? I mean, he drive the church bus without a license, but he was helping people get to church. I haven't prayed as much as I prayed that year. Prayed as much as I prayed that year. Some days I pray that I conquer fear, and some nights I pray that I disappear. Mama told me we'd be okay, but I could tell that she's not okay. Chest pain and anxiety, she had trouble breathing the other day. I had trouble believing the pastor said God's got a plan in all of this. As he smiled in a MAGA hat, I had to question his common sense. I mean, can't you see that we struggling? And you gon' hit me with Bible scripts. Forget religion and politics, man. I just wanna have my dad back. Praying for the daylight. Praying for the daylight. Praying for the day I find me the way I'm lost and I can't find. Praying for the daylight. Praying for the daylight. Praying for the day I find me the way I'm lost and I can't find.
Welcome back to The Bottom Line. We just got done listening to 4 a.m. by WHATUPRG. WHATUPRG is an artist signed to a record label called Reach Records. This song is about how his father was deported and his experience in dealing with that, and in regards to his faith and even regards to politics a little bit, how he's dealing with that. And he has kind of, within this kind of subgroup of hip hop, he's kind of become a voice for issues regarding immigration, kind of someone that people are really thankful for, because he's bringing some of these things to light that it's kind of new for people to hear. And this song is very deep. So if we're talking about the music, art, and technique behind this song, what stands out to you the most, Jake?
Not about like the message behind it, just about the...
We'll get to that in a second.
Okay. We talked about Andy last week, and he's probably my favorite artist on Reach Records. But I told you this the other day. I think WHATUPRG is a close second for me. Just in, like, he's at the forefront of his career right now. Like, he's really starting out. Yeah. And he's starting out well. Yeah, and all his stuff is similar to Andy in the sense that it's unconventional.
Yep.
And I really like that sound. I really like the like effects like the vocal effects in that song.
Like the high pitched voice.
Oh yeah, I love that.
I love that. Has become something that is extremely popular in hip hop music. Is a high pitched voice that either takes over the hook or resonates in the background. And it sounds different in this song. Like, it doesn't sound as, to me, it doesn't sound as affected by either like plugins or effects. It sounds raw to me.
Sometimes I think it's used, sometimes it feels like it's extrapolated out of like an existing track. Like they just took the vocal and just kind of like duplicated it, pitch shifted, whatever.
Right.
But this feels like more authentic.
Yeah. You like, it's obviously meant for this song.
Yeah.
And even other hip hop tracks that incorporate that, it's almost like you could take that and put it into another song. But this one's like this belongs here. It belongs in 4 a.m. and it sounds unique to me, and I like that a lot.
Other things I noticed about like what RG does in general, like the faith part.
Yeah.
Like he likes to do that sort of thing. Like he's done that a couple times in different songs.
Like just rapid
Yeah.
repeats.
Like jarring changes in
Yeah.
the cadence.
Yeah, that's because that's a strange way to end this
Yeah.
song. But if you feel like it, go check out his full EP. It's called Raul, Raul, and that change at the end of the song like leans into the next song. And what I really like about WHATUPRG is that what he releases is kind of a story. And so this whole EP called Raul is like a story of how the deportation of his father has affected him. And this is like the valley of the story. And then the song after this is the freedom anthem out of that.
Yeah, that's going to be my follow-up question if we're moving on from the technicalities of the musical side.
One more thing I want to say is a genius incorporation of lo-fi style.
Yeah.
It like not really what you'd expect, but a great introduction to the song. And then after the beat finally drops, how the two blend together in just this really groovy way, but it's still a sad song. Yet there's still really bright elements to it. I think it's incredible.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even follow typical song structure. Like it starts with what you think would be the hook.
Yeah.
But it doesn't do that again, I don't think. The I don't pray like I used to.
No, I think you're right.
Like it starts with that.
Yeah.
And then it progresses and progresses. And I love songs that do that and defy what is expected of a rap song.
Right.
And I think that goes to show his artistry and the thought he puts into it. But you were about to comment on the content.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Like I'd have to listen to the whole story to get a better perspective on it, but I was going to say I really like the brutal honesty of it.
Yeah.
And I was going to ask, he sounds uncontent in this song.
Right.
And we've just been talking about that. And then you said in the next song it kind of is a contrast.
The last song on this EP is called Free. And it's just him like declaring freedom in Jesus' name.
Gotcha.
WHATUPRG is a Christian. And the 4 a.m. song indicates a lot of doubts and questions in his mind, but it's not stopping him from declaring freedom.
Yeah.
And I think it is meant to reflect that he doesn't intend to stay in this place.
Yeah.
He intends to move on from it. But it is a battle. It seems like it's a battle for his faith. And I think that's where the discontentment comes from, is how he's seen people who are supposed to be Christians respond to his situation.
Right. And I forgot.
Oh, if you think of it again, just happen. He like just so many deep lines where he oh, do you remember?
Yeah, I remember.
Cool, go for it.
I was going to say, like, we've been talking about how the Bible tells you to be thankful in everything. And I think this song is a good picture of how that is not easy.
Yes.
Like, that is a challenge. And this song just is a very real picture of, like, how we're still going to struggle. Like, it's still going to be, like, the hard times. Like, that's going to be... It's going to be hard to thank God for those moments.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that brings a new dimension to what we were talking about, because I think contentment is meant to be the state of your soul, so that your soul doesn't leave its position which is supposed to be in God's hands. Your soul doesn't leave that position, but I think there needs to be change Like certain things in the world need to change.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of this song addresses is like, this is hard and I'm confused by this because this needs to change. People need to do this. They need to recognize this more and they need to essentially get their hands dirty. And I think the line where he says, oh man, I'm trying to remember it. Oh shoot.
What's it about?
It's I completely forgot.
Dang, well, let me know if you remember it.
Okay.
Just hop right in.
Oh, thank you so much. He says, can't you see that we're struggling? And you're going to hit me with Bible scripts?
Yeah.
Forget religion and politics, man. I just want to have my dad back.
Right.
That, I think, speaks volumes to the soul. And I think that is something that stagnant people need to hear.
Yeah.
Because Bible scriptures are helpful.
Yeah.
They're meant to be helpful. Politics we won't dive in. It's meant to be a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's meant to be a good thing. And he's saying, like, that's not enough. Until someone is walking alongside someone who is struggling, the Bible verses you send them aren't going to help a whole lot. The Bible verses, the Bible itself is meant to point to people walking together with people through struggles.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be more than me texting you an encouraging message, me texting you an encouraging Bible verse. It needs to be me coming alongside you.
Yeah.
That's true friendship, and that's real life. That's just how it works. And just his honesty in the song, I think, is remarkable. And him saying, I don't pray like I used to.
Yeah.
I can't keep waiting on you.
Right.
That it's just the urgency of his situation and the state of his soul. WHATUPRG has been pretty open with the fact that he's struggled with depression throughout his life since this happened to him. And so he goes into the story about how it's 4 a.m. at night or in the morning, and the cops knock on his door, literally come in and take his dad from him, his brother, and his mom, and they're all there to see it.
Yeah.
And they're confused. And ever since then, he's been open about how he has struggled with depression, like at a spiritual level.
Yeah.
Like really.
Because when he says, I can't keep waiting on you, that doesn't really fall in line with the Bible verse, be thankful in everything.
Right.
And we're not trying to make a case that this is a song about being thankful.
Right.
But
Yeah,
it's just, again, to show that, like you said, the distraught state of his soul. Like,
yeah.
What I feel in the moment right now is that I don't know how I can keep this up because nothing's happening.
That's how he felt.
Yeah.
God knew that's how he felt, so he said it. And he said it bravely in a song.
Yeah.
Because I feel like saying, I can't keep waiting on you, God, is something that would get Christians to look down on you for.
Right.
But for him to say that is like, this situation is so painful to me and so urgent that if somebody doesn't come help me, I'm not going to be okay. And I can't keep waiting because it's too hard.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the song? In the last minute that we have?
I also just like how that's followed with say something.
Yeah, his desire is to hear God speak.
He just wants to know what's going on.
Yes.
I just think it's nice.
That was 4 a.m. by WHATUPRG. You guys have been listening to The Bottom Line, where we meet life's inconsistencies with foundational truth. I'm here with Jake Chandler. My name is Harrison Kramer. Today we discussed the importance of thankfulness, how it's involved in our culture, whether it's involved enough or not, the villains of thankfulness, which is envy and discontentment, and then how the Bible challenges us to be content in every single situation. No matter what the situation is, we have a reason to be thankful. And we also broke down the song called 4 a.m. by WHATUPRG. And that about sums up our show. Jake, thanks again for being with us.
No problem.
We'll be here again next Tuesday at 3 o'clock until 4 p.m. All these episodes will also